This podcast is brought to you by AudioHook, the leading independent audio DSP. AudioHook has direct publisher integrations into all major podcast and streaming radio platforms, providing 40% more inventory than what could be accessed in omnichannel DSPs. What's more, AudioBook has full transcripts on more than 90% of all podcast inventory, enabling advanced contextual targeting and brand suitability. AudioHook is so confident that in addition to CPM buys, they offer the industry's only pay-for-performance option where brands can scale audio and podcasting with peace of mind knowing they are only paying for outcomes. Visit audiohook.com to learn more. That's audiohook.com. All right, welcome to Marketecture, where you can get smart fast with in-depth interviews of leading technology executives. I'm joined today by Matthew Doherty, who is the CEO of North America for EXTE. Matthew, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ari. Psyched to be on.
So I was saying before we started recording that I was excited about this because I don't know very much about EXTE, so I'm going to learn too. So EXTE is based in Madrid. Tell me about the company and what it does and the history here.
Yeah. You're not alone in being unfamiliar with the name. It's actually, the name itself is new as of January of 2024. So we actually went through a rebrand at the beginning of last year. And the reason for doing so is because we actually had just completed a round of M&A activity in the year prior. And it sort of made sense once we had integrated these different businesses and assets together under one roof to rebrand and rename. So something new.
What was it called before?
So the most prominent of the three companies that we acquired and merged to form EXTE were, and they all kind of were occupied sort of a unique space within the digital ad tech landscape or ecosystem, if you will. I'll give you a little bit of history on each of them just because I think it'll help contextualize the offering.
Sure.
The largest of the three, which was based in Madrid, was a company called Sun Media. They were very much on the sort of demand side focused side of the business. And, think of them as like a DSP / ad network, video and display, did a lot of like rich media, high impact. So, had a pretty prominent presence over there in Europe and really focused on like the Iberia region, the EU5, and then a lot of significant LATAM presence as well.
Right. Okay.
Another one of the companies that we acquired was a company called Rich Audience, which was one of the largest SSPs in Europe. They, on the sort of flip side of what Sun Media did, they were very much focused on direct publisher relationships, publisher enablement, yield management on behalf of the supply side, of course. They had some solutions as well that were really interesting to us. They had some contextual technology that we found to be very interesting that they had been developing over the course of their 10-year history. Then you also had a third company that was based in Barcelona called Adpone, and Adpone was also sort of publisher focused, had a bunch of different publisher enablement tools as well, also had a contextual technology and contextual capability, as well as a creative studio that kind of went alongside or married up pretty nicely with the creative studio that Sun Media offered. So when we were looking at those three assets in totality, there was an opportunity to kind of create and build a marketplace that we identified, right? You've got demand side tools with the Sun Media side of the business. You've got direct access integrations with the publishers via the SSP Rich Audience. And then you've got these contextual tools, significant like patented contextual tools, as well as a pretty sophisticated creative studio for custom post-production creative optimization. And so it made sense to kind of bring all that together under one roof. And once we did all of that work, which was pretty much the entire calendar year of 2023, which fortunately predated me because I think that was probably a tough year.
Smart to join after that.
We had an offering that was now no longer just kind of a series of point solutions, but more of an end-to-end platform that we could take to market. And that was when we decided to rebrand to EXTE, as well as make some strategic decisions to move into what we would consider expansion markets, North America being the biggest of them. And that's when I came on board.
Oh, okay. And how big is the company overall, like round numbers of headcount?
We're about just over 400 employees.
Oh, wow. That's pretty
450
substantial.
Employees, and in 32 countries, I believe.
Right.
Worldwide.
So what is the basic offering at this point, since you do a little bit of everything? What do people call you and ask for?
It's funny because I think there's different components of the offering. Overall, when I am asked to give a very short description of what we do, I consider us really like an outcome-based media optimization platform. And we use a kind of series of different tools and mechanisms that are proprietary to us, mostly driven by agentic AI that we've developed over the course of several years to drive just improved media performance across the marketing funnel, both behalf of the brand side, like the marketer side, as well as the publisher side. So, the word curation gets thrown around a lot these days.
It does.
I think everyone could kind of like fit into that bucket. Curation, in my estimation, is not anything new. We've been doing, supply decision data and data applied decisioning on the supply side for years. But I think that might be like an easy-ish way if you had to put us in a box. But the reality is there's a lot of different tools that our clients lean into, some more than others, that are part of the offering. You don't need to use all of the components of the offering to ultimately, take full advantage of what we do, right? There's some clients that use us just for supply. There's some clients that use us for supply plus, the creative optimization. There's some clients that use us for supply plus contextual. The main reason or the secret sauce, what the clients are using, most clients are using us for most often, is this agentic optimization logic that we apply to every impression that we serve. That's outcome oriented against media KPIs to help deliver better performance against those KPIs.
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. So on the buy side, are customers generally using your sort of DSP and login system, or are they using a different DSP plus your agentic AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, it's kind of an interesting pivot that we made because, there's a lot of learning entering a new market, especially as a sort of not known entity when we entered the marketplace. So we, I think, to our credit, were willing to have an open mind about what was going to make the most sense and fit most neatly into sort of the existing workflow and infrastructure of the ecosystem. And so we do, while we own and operate our own SSP, what we were finding was that when we were working with clients, a lot of bigger clients on the demand side or the marketer side had just finished up these like multi-year, what they would call, SPO exercises or consolidation exercises where, going through the process of getting another credited SSP integrated into, whatever their existing stack might be, could be a multi-year process, right? So while we own and operate an SSP that was already directly integrated into many of the big DSPs that are out there, the challenge is more so like working within and seamlessly fitting within the workflows of our bigger demand side clients, such that they didn't have to go through another like vetting cycle and vetting process that could take years. So what we ultimately ended up doing was integrating a lot of our tech, like, like the curation technology pre-bid, a lot of our pre-existing inventory into some of those major SSPs that had already been vetted, and essentially using those guys as pipes, for lack of a better term.
So you're using your data and your contextual and your AI to create deals in the major SSPs, and then the customers are using whatever DSP they want. Is
Correct.
That the typical?
And they could connect directly into our SSP too if they were if they felt like they wanted to do that. But yes.
And so when we talk about the data and what's proprietary there, tell me about the contextual engine and the AI and what makes it different.
Yeah, what's really cool about the contextual tech is it's a sort of a multi-stage analysis that we do of every new domain that we see that gets published on a daily basis. On average, about 20 million unique URLs that we see on a daily basis. And what we do is, as I said, we go through a sort of multi-stage analysis, contextual analysis of these different pages. The first step of the analysis is we look at and scan all embedded media that would exist on that page. So video, any existing imagery, any embedded audio, any existing sort of media elements that would exist on that page. And we scan and we look at it and analyze it for contextual signals or clues that might inform step 2 of the process, which is obviously the sort of semantic or editorial analysis of that page. We've used, this technology, the contextual technology that we've built and that we've developed over the course of, as I mentioned, 10 or so years now, back in 2015, before contextual was like the apple of everybody's eye, like it is today. We started training natural language processing and large language models to basically understand the sort of syntax between words at a more, let's call it fundamental level than what we've seen traditional contextual technologies that are more like topic based.
Right. More semantic technology.
Semantic, exactly.
Yeah.
So we look at the actual relationship between the words on the page, the syntax. We're able to unearth, sentiment, tonality. We could also obviously understand the differences between words that could have different meanings in different contexts. You think of the word fly, it could be a mosquito, it could be an airplane, it could be the fly on the zipper on your jeans, right? And so you need to be able to understand the sort of surrounding environment to be able to make the most accurate contextual classification possible. And so we'll then marry up sort of the semantic analysis that we've done that's, again, syntax based with the media analysis that we've done on the page. And we'll arrive at essentially a contextual classification of that page that we feel strongly is, as accurate as it could possibly be. And we actually ascribe a confidence level or a confidence score to that contextual categorization so that our marketers know that are working with us and may want to deploy this type of contextual targeting on a given campaign. Hey, we're 85% sure based on the resonance between the embedded media that we've scanned and the editorial that we've analyzed, as well as the editorial itself, that this is an article about sports or music or whatever it might be.
And how do you give control to the marketer? What are their inputs into this process?
So we basically have, in terms of the confidence score, like we kind of have our own standard there. Anything that's below 80%, it's not a non-targetable entity for us, meaning if we're less than 80% confident that the contextual classification we've given a certain page could be inaccurate in any way, it's not even a targetable entity. But what we do give sort of control over on behalf of our clients is the ability to do fully customized contextual segmentation, right? So when we're doing that multi-stage analysis of these different various 20 million plus URLs or domains that we're scanning every day, what we are doing is we're ultimately arriving at a, IAB standard taxonomy sort of segment that we're classifying the page to. So in the example I gave before, it would be sports. But we're also, while we're doing that analysis, picking up on any sub-entities that may exist, and we're caching those sub-entities that we've picked up along the way during that analysis. So maybe it's an article about sports, but we've identified that it's about baseball and the Yankees. We've identified the Yankees and the All-Star game and baseball and Yankee Stadium. And so all of these different characteristics are then cached with that page, with that analysis. So if we have a client come to us next week and say, we want to run a campaign that's targeted against any page that has contextual relevance to the All-Star game, for example, we've already made that sort of identification, and we're now able to offer up that page as one that would be contextually relevant and a targetable entity. Yeah.
And you mentioned the one company that was merged in here was more like the rich creative side of things. How does that product continue to exist? Yeah,
that product is kind of the idea behind that product. I think creative in general is a little bit commoditized these days, and when I say creative, I mean like post-production studio work. Seemingly, a lot of different folks offer that. And I don't think that necessarily the like production work that we do is going to be altogether that different than what some of the other players that are doing, I think, also doing great work within the studio world are offering. For us, what we do is we have sort of it's more of theoretical and conceptual of built for screen and fit for format, right? And so what will happen is a lot of times we'll have clients that, again, because they're mostly using us for our optimization logic to inform the best possible placement to best yield the desired outcome or media KPI of a given campaign, they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, here's a video asset or here's a display asset. Run it in all the different formats and channels that you want to give your optimization logic the best possible chance at driving the outcome of, let's say it's a click, right? And so what we'll often do is we recognize, hey, if we just get one piece of creative, the way that creative renders on, a mobile in-app inventory versus mobile web versus a desktop versus like a CTV impression, the way that we render that image or that creative is going to have vastly different results depending on the screen and the format that we serve it within. So what we try to do is take the creative assets that we've been given on behalf of the advertiser and then sort of optimize them for maximum efficacy based on the screen and format that they'll be delivering in. We have some tools that automate that process with some clients who are comfortable with allowing for that automation. And then we also have the ability to just kind of create it on our own and then, share it back to the client for approval before we actually deploy it. And that's it's a fully staffed in-house team of 40 plus engineers and designers that build everything in-house. So
wow.
The capabilities are like, as simple as overlays and end cards to as sophisticated as AR, VR, 3D, chatbot, you name it.
And what's the business model in general? Are you charging for data or for media? Is it disclosed? It's media. Yep. So it's mostly through a deal ID, and it's a media fee.
Yeah, it's a deal ID, or there's a managed service component of our offering too. But I'd say 70 to 80% of our business is programmatic through deal IDs. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's transition to our lightning round. So I'll ask you relatively quick questions, hopefully relatively quick answers. What is your number one competitive advantage?
The optimization logic, for sure. 10 years building a database of hundreds of millions of impressions that look at various signals that go into a given impression, time of day, screen type, domain, creative, etc. We query this database and are able to predict, historically speaking, how that data has driven a given media KPI or outcome. And that's what decisions whether or not we actually move forward with an impression or not.
All right. And how would you protect yourself against Google, Facebook, Amazon, etc., ultimately crushing you? And I ask that of everybody.
I think they have the capability to do that to almost anyone. I think is sort of the reality of the fact. At the end of the day, I think consolidation is coming no matter what. I mean, if you take a zoom out and look beyond the walled gardens, right? Themes that we're seeing in the marketplace. SSPs are building demand-side technology. DSPs are building their own private supply marketplaces. We're going to end up meeting in the middle. And I think that the players that are going to be the ones who ultimately survive and can protect their business are going to be the ones that can show that they can be, accretive to these mergers and still add some value to the supply chain. So I feel like we do that in a number of ways. But again, I would lean on the contextual capabilities that we have and the predictive optimization capabilities that we have as working very nicely with some of those tools, right? So like our optimization logic, which is supply side driven, theoretically, if you're buying through DV360, they're going to have their own optimization logic in the DSP. Our optimization logic combined with theirs is going to lead to improved performance.
Got it. And what is your biggest challenge?
I think right now, brand building in the U.S., honestly, we're still a relative newcomer to the space. It's a crowded space. There's a lot of folks out here doing great things too. The technology that I've seen and been exposed to has been exceptional. So I think it's just getting the name out, continuing to drive trial with clients. We're fortunate that we do have a history of working with major brands and have been an established sort of entity in admittedly separate forms and different names over the course of a few years, but there's a lot of historical experience with a lot of brands working with EXTE in various forms. And I think that's helped us really hit the market and start to build some momentum quickly here in the US. But that remains the biggest challenge is definitely just continuing to build the brand in the US.
Certainly a crowded market in the US. So last question, if EXTE was an animal, what animal would it be?
Oh man, I love that question. Let me say honey badger.
All right. Why honey badger? I don't think that's the first honey badger we've gotten.
Is it the first?
No, I don't think it is.
It's not the first. Okay, I'm not original enough, I guess.
Yeah, but that's pretty original, as long as you don't say lion. So why honey badger?
No, we're still relatively small, but I think that we have a tenacity both in our approach to business, the folks that we have here on our team, the boots on the ground in the U.S., our approach to building software and technology, which is move really fast. Be very quick and, iterate as much as you can, as quickly as you can. I think it's really based on that sort of tenacity, and the size of the animal isn't necessarily representative of its potential, more so what's inside, All
right. Yeah. Good answer. So thank you so much, Matthew Doherty, the US CEO of EXTE. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you for listening to the Marketecture Podcast. New episodes come out every Friday, and an insightful vendor interview is published each Monday. You can subscribe to our library of hundreds of executive interviews at marketecture.tv. You can also sign up for free for our weekly newsletter with my original strategic insights on the week's news at news.marketecture.tv. And if you're feeling social, we operate a vibrant Slack community that you can apply to join at adtechgod.com.